Welcome, folks. We're reading the news today. So here's the thing. I'm going to go through it, give you a little bit of a snippet, read a little bit of it to you. Make sure you have it. I'm going to try to get you the links to the stories so that you can do with them what you like, and then have that information. You can go read them for yourself and check up on me. Check up on me. Take the topic. Go do it. I'm not unbiased. I picked these things as they came. I was reading the news. I have several streams that I've put together, sources I trust, and there's the news. And so I read it. I pass it on. I'm not passing on any baseball scores or entertainment news particularly, unless I want to. I'm not unbiased. Nobody's unbiased. We're all biased. We all see the world through our own lenses. I happen to see better with these on. But if they were pink, I'd see the world as sort of in a shade of pink. If they were blue, in blue. So I try to get the clearest glasses that I possibly can and read the news as someone who doesn't always have an opinion about it, although I do have an opinion. So I'm going to give you some opinions today. Check them out, believe them or not. Yeah, I read the Bible in one hand and the newspaper in the other. But I read the same Bible as a lot of you, but I seem to read it differently because a lot of the stuff that's going on in the news hand with certain elements of our body politic don't seem to jive with the Jesus that I read about in the Bible. So when I see that, I'm going to tell you that. I'm going to tell you. Now, whatever you read in your other hand, that's fine. But on the other hand, we've only got two hands, most of us. Unless we've had some major mutations, we've got two hands. So on one hand and on the other hand. Let's see what's in the news today and what we can say about it. By the way, what's a liar and what's truth? I used to run forums on CompuServe. I was a sysop. I was actually a WizOp at some point. That's a wizard sysop. Sysop is short for system operator. I knew nothing about operating systems except I could operate the system we were in there. Well, as a sysop, I had a staff of volunteers who helped manage the flow of discussion. And I would do some censorship, like I wouldn't let people call each other names. I wouldn't let people yell. I wouldn't let people cuss. We had a civilized discussion of the issues of the day. But in my official capacity, I didn't take a position on their opinions. I just expressed my opinion when I acted as an ordinary member. But folks get out of hand. It was a private forum. We were owned. It was my business, and I ran it the way I saw fit to run it. But one of the things I didn't really like people calling each other was liar. I could say, well, you can pass on a lie that you believe. That certainly doesn't make you a liar. Or you can tell a lie, but it doesn't necessarily mean you always tell lies, thus that you are characterized as a liar. The question I want to ask you today, before we read the news, is how many times do you have to get caught habitually lying, be confronted with it, deny it again, make up another lie, before you're either someone who always believes a lie or has no sense of connection with truth or reality, or you're just a liar? At what point do you self-identify as a liar? Self-identify, and then say it doesn't matter. And at what point do the people who receive those either get discouraged or disgruntled, or, by the way, gruntled is a word. That's kind of a good feeling. So disgruntled is the one we think about, and that's not such a good feeling. You get disgruntled, or you get jaded, or, and I don't understand this position, you get to the place where you just don't care whether they're telling the truth or not. Because as long as it's your truth and as long as it supports your position, you'll go along with it. So I'm going to try to bring truth the best I can see what it is. Okay, so Trump plan to kill dozens of NASA missions threatens U.S. space supremacy. This is from MSN. The White House is calling for roughly 50% cut to NASA science spending to $3.9 billion, part of an overall pullback that would deliver the lowest funding level in the agency's history and kill more than 40 NASA science missions and projects, according to detailed plans released this month. Now, people think about NASA as just being a curiosity kind of venture. Well, do you realize how many products that help humanity on this planet have been developed as a result of research that NASA has done? Think about it, research it, go off, research it yourself. I'm not here to do all your work for you. I'm not here to do your homework for you. NASA is not just about going into space. NASA is about improving life on this planet. Now, since John F. Kennedy set out the vision for NASA, a bold vision to explore the heavens, it's been a public project and a publicly funded project. Yes, it's employed a lot of companies. It's become sort of a part of Eisenhower talked about the military industrial complex. It's become a part of the space industrial complex, and we're all for private industry. But what if your biggest competition for that which is public and of public benefit becomes someone who has invested gazillions of dollars in seeing this administration come to power and who owns the competitor who will probably benefit from these cuts to the budget? That's my speculation. But you think about it and you tell me, Air India plane crashes with 242 on board. How many people are commenting on this today? You say, well, what can we do about it? Nothing, but 242 people have died in England, many of them from India, and we should take a moment and lament and weep. And if we don't, we've lost something of our humanity. So what about anger? Well, I've talked about anger a little bit the last couple of days and how anger can be a positive energy, or it can be a negative excuse, or it can just be a downer. But we can take anger and translate it into positive action and energy. But you can't sustain hot, blazing anger all the time. It's not healthy. So there's got to be other things that motivate us, and nothing beats compassion. We ought to read the news with a big open space in our minds, a great big fire in our bellies, but a heart burning with compassion for the human beings that inhabit this earth. Next story, Newsom calls Trump a stone cold liar as LA protests against ICE raids continue. Governor Gavin Newsom, California's governor, has called Donald Trump a stone cold liar, condemned the federal deployment of troops in Los Angeles as theater and madness, and even questioned the president's mental fitness as he protests over immigration raids in the city as they continue. You know, Jimmy Kimmel's not a newscaster, but you should watch last night's show and the night before. He puts this thing in perspective and he gets his facts right. He gets his facts right. Does it with humor, sarcasm, a lot of snippiness, but the thing is, he's right. He's right. The crisis is overblown, and I want to add, LA is so much less on fire than when it was actually on fire, and the president did nothing to help, except some nonsensical thing he wanted to do with the water that made no sense and showed no attention to detail. Trump federalized 2,000 of California's National Guard, which is still in question, Saturday, with a U.S. president acting over objections of a state governor, which he said he wouldn't do, by the way. He said, we can't do that. In this way, for the first time in more than half a century. It followed the outbreak of protests over a series of sweeping immigration raids in the LA area, with Newsom criticizing Trump's actions as illegal overreach, unconstitutional provocation. And this is MSN, I'm quoting directly. Now, U.S. Marines are being added to this force to back up arrests by the Federal Immigration and Customs Enforcement Agency. These tactics that Newsom said have been used to disappear people unlawfully in these raids rather than confront the protesters who have destroyed property around an ICE facility in downtown Los Angeles. Well, this requires some investigation, not only on the part of the media, but on yours. But check it out. See if Newsom's telling the truth about this. He's certainly right. Whether or not he calls Trump a liar, see, I'm not a judge of that. Seems to be. But he has lied a lot. And do you care? Do you care? Well, in the meantime, and this was going on when I was gathering this news, officials pulled Padilla, one of our elected representatives, out of the room as Homeland Security talks to reporters in Los Angeles. This was reported by The Guardian. Our British friends picked up on this. The link's in the notes, so go for it. Hegseth refuses to commit to obeying courts on Marines in LA. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth has refused to say whether he would follow courts if they ruled against Donald Trump sending active duty Marines to Los Angeles, despite California Governor Gavin Newsom's objections. That was also in The Guardian. Well, there you go. The Secretary of Defense of the United States of America, who is sworn to uphold the Constitution as regards to his office as the leader of the Defense Department, that Constitution that says that there are three branches of government and that they all need to be respected and obeyed, has not ruled out that he would disobey an order of the courts. Folks, these are equal branches. Read your Constitution. The executive branch has its function and it's day to day. The legislative branch makes all the laws. And the judicial branch interprets them and issues rulings about whether they're constitutional or not. And it is incumbent upon the executive branch and the legislative branch to follow the rulings of the Supreme Court of the United States of America. Now, I don't like the Supreme Court of the United States of America's often, how do I say this? I got myself in a grammatical quandary here. I don't like all their rulings recently. I'm not happy with the way it's composed, but if you're an official of the government, you got to follow their directions. Okay, here's another one from The Guardian. Dollar slides to 3-year low while FTSE 100 hits a record high. What does it mean when the dollar's up or down? It has to do with international confidence in the value of the dollar based upon the economy of the nation that issues that currency and its credibility in the world. As I would interpret this, loss of confidence in the American dollar means a loss of confidence in America's economic leadership in the world. You interpret it however you like. More mass casualties near Gaza. Food points. As GHF says, 5 staff killed. Folks, Israel has a right to protect itself and to stop bombs. By the way, most of those bombs fired from Gaza are going to land in the desert on nothing. But almost every bomb fired by Israel lands on people indiscriminately. Israel has a right to defend itself, has a right to live in peace. It has the right to be. It is an established right. It is a sovereign nation. It's a good nation made up of good people and mostly good laws, and some bad policies being carried out in terms of how it's defending itself against the minority of people in Gaza. That minority is growing because if the bombs are falling on you, you just are naturally going to side against the ones that are throwing the bombs at you. They're not making friends over there. But here's a more important point, because I'm not here to banter against Israel. They make their own laws. They carry out their own policies. But the United States of America has always been a force for peace and resolution of conflict in the world, and we have lost our voice, and we are daily losing our credibility and our influence in the world. Our isolationism, except for ranting about popular opinions, is diminishing day by day. And so for the good of Israel and the good of Palestine and the good of all the people, we need to get that back. We need real diplomats in the places where diplomatic policy and international policy is being made. We need thinkers. We need smart people. We need people with university educations and advanced degrees and experience, people who look deeply into subjects. We need people like Jimmy Carter, who studied his head off about the Middle East. He became an expert in the history of the Middle East before he brought Begin and Sadat to Camp David and brokered peace. Detail by detail. People are going to keep dying. But to read with an open mind, we have to read with an open heart. Compassion. If you can't be compassionate about people, whether they're on the right side of the fence or the wrong side of the fence, in your opinion, especially children, I'm going to let you call it what it is. U.S. Immigration Agency flies drones capable of surveillance over LA protests. Oh, we know you're going to do it. You're going to use whatever you've got. And I'm not sure. I like the idea of drones providing surveillance in public places because it's safe. But I don't want it abused. So is it being abused? I don't know. But look it up. If you're interested, study it. Google it. If you don't like Google, Bing it. If you don't like Bing, do something else with it. If you think the Russians are better, then go on to Yandex and use their search engine. You know what? You're going to find the same results, whatever search engine you use, because the algorithms really are word search. The web crawlers are pretty much programmed the same way. If you don't know what a web crawler is, you probably ought to stop criticizing how they work and find out what they are. Marines prepare for Los Angeles deployment as protests spread across the U.S. Well, they really don't care what you think about this, unless you're already thinking their way. Meanwhile, from the AP, the latest. California challenges Trump's use of military in Los Angeles. Well, okay. It should be challenged. Now, whatever comes of it, the Secretary of Defense says we're going to do whatever we want to do. First thing, families arrested in LA ICE raids held with little food or water, lawyers say. We know that's right. They're not even providing enough food and water for the National Ding Dang Guard. Let me say something. The men and women who join the National Guard do so for one reason. They want to protect the people of the United States of America. They do this for their country. They don't make that much money. Maybe there's some incentives. Maybe it's a good job. Maybe they're building up their retirement after active duty, but they mainly do it because they want to serve this country. I don't think any of them signed up to go out and arrest protesters or raise their arms against their fellow citizens. I don't think a single one of them is down there because they're going to be thrown on the floor to sleep without food and water and adequate. I'm standing up for them too. Israel considering military action against Iran in a couple of days. Well, they're pretty sure that Iran is their biggest enemy. In fact, the matter is, Iran is their biggest enemy, and Iran has nuclear weapons pointed at them, and they should be cautious about Iran. And I don't know, I'm not a military strategist. I don't know the best way to confront it, but I know this. In other administrations, the United States would recognize that a war between Israel and Iran is not in the best interest of any of the countries in the Middle East or the world or the United States of America, and we would be actively brokering for peace. But we don't have the standing in this administration. People don't take us seriously because our administration speaks out of one side of its mouth, the other side of its mouth, the roof of its mouth, it runs out of its nose, and half the time doesn't know what it's saying. I'm impersonalizing it. How can you be a broker for peace when you don't understand the complexities of the issues? We've relinquished our place to do some good, and we have not the respect of the world. We ought to be over there working behind the scenes, doing something. U.S. pulled American personnel from parts of the U.S., parts of the Middle East and Iran amid tensions. Well, I have to back up. We pulled personnel from the area amid the tensions. That's what we really want to say. Well, that's probably smart. We don't want to get caught in the middle. Sometimes they do something smart. And that's because there's still some smart people at the State Department and Defense Department and in the military. The sources were not aware of a specific U.S. role in the strikes, blah, blah, blah. You read it. U.S. currently has planned nuclear talks with Iranian officials this weekend. Well, I wish the best. I hope it goes well. The UN Refugee Agency says that more than 123 million people were forcibly displaced worldwide in recent times. This is AP. The UN Refugee Agency says the number of people forcibly displaced by violence and persecution around the world has risen to more than 122 million, up by about 2 million from last year and near doubling over the last decade. Director Filippo Grandi nonetheless pointed to some rays of hope over the last 6 months. Well, that's good. That's not enough. These are the kinds of issues that should concern us, that should break our hearts. If you're one of those folks who reads the Bible in one hand and the newspaper in the other, whichever hand it is for you, then you know that God doesn't respect borders with regard to these issues. And God doesn't want you to have more concern for one kind of people over another kind of people. Don't you quote Jesus at me when you say that God doesn't care about this, and we shouldn't care. From the Washington Post, live updates. House vote is set to vote on Doge-inspired cuts to foreign aid. To PBS, and to NBPR. So, foreign aid, which buys us goodwill, which buys us a voice, which paves the way for our business interests, our military interests, our diplomatic interests, by helping people, and NPR, and that gives us credible, unbiased, as best they can news. They always invite both sides to argue things. And PBS, which educates adults and children about our history and about nature and about science, which are all in disrepute in these days. Let's cut them. And I know a lot of good agencies that are worrying about the cuts. And Doge's war on the nonprofits of this country. Let me say something about nonprofits. Their directors are not paid. Did you know that? You know that, don't you? The boards of directors of nonprofit organizations are almost all unpaid volunteers, smart people who are accountable to their organizations and accountable to their communities. The financial records of nonprofit organizations are published each year for you to read. You can read the 990s of every nonprofit organization that is recognized under the Internal Revenue Service. You can read it at GuideStar. They're there. You can read them. You don't have to pay to read them. Their minutes are open to the public. Not all their meetings, but their minutes. Basically, depending on the organization, many of their meetings are. Their executive directors are responsible to this elected board of directors. When they take money to do a project that the federal government or the state government or the local government is determined as a priority, they do it at a discount. They do it at a cost that is below what it would cost the government to do it itself, and with lower salaries. You say, well, the president of the American Red Cross makes blah, 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 blah. You know how many people the president of the American Red Cross supervises? You know what it takes to be the president of the American Red Cross? And you know how many people under this person make anywhere near that kind of money? No, you don't understand. If you think nonprofits are gouging the government, you don't understand how nonprofits work and what they do. I work with a nonprofit. I'm a volunteer of a nonprofit. Last summer, last time I checked, it had 55 full-time equivalent volunteer employees, all of whom were working from home hours and hours and hours and doing a great job. And they were activating 10,000 volunteers like me, most of whom work about 10 hours a week, giving our time to helping small businesses get started. That's the nonprofit world, my friends. I'm not sure how many nonprofit boards Mr. Musk serves on or how many hours he volunteers for that. I know he volunteered this work for the government. God bless him for volunteering it. I'm sure he's not going to get a dime out of it. Most U.S. adults say Trump's military parade is not a good use of money, a new AP poll finds. Well, probably not. But what's $100 million in a multi-trillion-dollar budget? Trump's reaction to people boycotting the Kennedy Center to protest his presence. Well, it's comical. I'm giving you the link. You can look it up. Meta is fighting deepfake nudify software. Well, bless their hearts. Nobody wants to see a depiction of me without my clothes on. So thank God for that. Prices are way down on everything, says Donald Trump during an interview. Way down. Well, do your own survey. That's not my experience. A little handful of nuts I just threw in my mouth. And this little sip of coffee seemed to be costing me a little more. Matt Al blog. Isn't this embarrassing? Team Trump gets a brutal reminder about the weak economy. Well, I'll leave it to you. Some of you don't like Rachel Maddow. That's fine. Is she biased? Sure, she's biased. Am I biased? Sure, I'm biased. Are you biased? Yeah, I hope so. Hope you recognize it like the rest of us. You know, I really do love you. I appreciate you. I know you don't all agree with me, but at least we can read the newspaper. Now, I'm going to be looking into ground news, maybe recommending it to you, maybe subscribing myself. I want to hear both sides of everything, if I can. I don't want to spend a lot of time on stupidity on either side of the spectrum. I don't want to hear a lot of yelling and opinionating, but I would like to get some balanced news and raw news and primary sources. If you ever went to college and you did a term paper, you know they like primary sources because they're just the facts, ma'am. Just like Joe Friday said, right? Well, I'm not going to give you just the facts. I'm going to give you a little bit of an opinion because you're going to hear other opinions, and some of them, in my opinion, are not worth the hair on a pig's belly. Well, this is Tom, and I'll see you. I'll try to see you tomorrow.